going on, guys? Sean here. And in that last video, I basically said that if you don't have the geometry and heat treatment to express the steel, then there's no point in putting a huge amount of emphasis on the steel because you're leaving a lot on the table. But at the same time, look, everybody wants to know, what role does the steel play? Okay, what is the best steel? And the answer to that is that there is no best steel. It just depends on the context, because all of these steels have huge strengths and huge weaknesses. The steels that are going to be the most balanced, okay, is that the best steel? It's kind of the best at nothing, right? Just like a lot of things in life. You think that these steels all have limits to them and things like that, or strengths and trade-offs and stuff. Go outside, look around you. You can see all these different kinds of cars and things like that driving down the road, trucks, different houses, different markets and this and that. They all have trade-offs, don't they? And the more you can understand the limits of them, the more you can appreciate what those strengths are that they do offer. Problem with knives, though, a knife looks like a knife looks like a knife. At least when you go outside and you look at the stuff around you, a truck looks like a truck. You can gather from what that truck looks like how its structure meets its function. You can gather from when you look at a little, sedan, little coupe, that like, okay, that looks like there's less of it, so it's gonna, eat up less gas and it'll be more efficient and this and that. Oh, the truck is bigger, it's got bigger tires, so it can drive off road. The knives don't have that luxury. The knives just look like fucking knives, so people are so incredibly lost with all this stuff because they don't understand how all this kind of stuff fits together. When you look at the chemistry of these steels right here, these chemistries are essentially also like looking at those vehicles and cars. And you can extrapolate that, okay, this S5 steel that you can see over here is like the big tires on the truck. The AEBL is like the little coupe sedan, okay? Just based off how you can look at this chemistry. That's just why it's so important to have a little bit of an understanding of how this kind of stuff works, so you can kind of understand the synergy of it, and so you can understand the performance, because you can't just go outside and be like, hey, like, what's the best vehicle, what is the best car, why can't we all just drive the same car? It doesn't fucking work like that, does it? Some people need a minivan, some people need a truck. Sometimes it just comes down to money. You need a fucking moped. So there's no answer for everything. And these steels, essentially, they work the same way, and so all I was just trying to get at with this video is that, yeah, we can take this S5 steel. Yeah, it's kind of just designed to be very durable because it's got less stuff inside of it. And how that essentially works inside steels is that the less stuff you have inside there, the less you have energy connecting the dots between the structures inside the steel and making it chip out. That's all. And that's just a very generalized way of looking at it. There's always caveats to things like this. Okay, we're just trying to keep it simple, all right, so we can move this along quickly and not overwhelm people with information. So AEBL, people know AEBL for being very stable. It's also able to achieve high hardnesses, and at the same time, with the alloy chemistry, we know that less stuff inside of a steel is going to make it more durable. So we can express AEBL in a lot of different ways, which is why it's so cool, right? We can take AEBL and we can basically make it a more durable side of stuff by having a lower hardness. Okay, hardness definitely correlates directly with having either strength or more kind of ductility. All right, so we can do more hardness on this metal and make it thinner geometry and have an amazing cutter. At the same time, it doesn't matter what you do with the heat treat or what you do with this and that. It'll never be as wear resistant as CPM 10V or S125V. That's just a fact. And what it comes down to is you're using this knife, and if you're cutting a lot of abrasive type material and things like that, and it's incredibly hard, incredibly thin ABL, yeah, that's going to be awesome. But maybe you just want a little bit more edge aggression. Maybe you want a little more cutting endurance. Maybe you don't want to have to stop and fucking hone the knife, all right? But at the same time, you're using stuff like S125V or 10V, yeah, it's not going to be as edge stable or as edge tough, I guess, as that stuff. Not as easy to sharpen. You're going to have better stones, equipment, things like that. It's going to cost more. These steels cost more. There's just more stuff in them, more time to fabricate the knife, etc. So just cost more. Doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. It's not going to always be badass performance for everybody. There's some prereqs to kind of enjoy it, right? You have to be a better user. You have to have better equipment. You have to know how to sharpen, I feel like, better. Even though the steel will cut longer, that doesn't mean like, oh, I'll just buy that S125V and I'll never have to sharpen. It doesn't quite work like that, does it? Everything goes dull. And then going back to like, okay, well, S125V is all great and dandy, but some people are just S5 steel people. Like they can't handle anything that's designed to have more strength and all that stuff, because their primary mechanism for dulling a knife is chipping. Okay, it doesn't stop cutting from blunting. it stops cutting because it's all fucking chipped out and shattered. And so they're better off with something that can handle that kind of extreme abuse. Okay. But at the same time, the whole reason why in that last video I was like, well, that's not really that exciting to go with the durability side of stuff is because it really just comes down to lower alloy. That's all. It doesn't take any fancy steel. S5 is actually kind of expensive steel. And to be honest, if you just need durability, you probably don't need to get into some Gucci, shock resistant steel. So there's steels that in real world use, probably just as plenty tough. You'd have a hard time discerning differences unless you're doing a really extreme shit. So that's all. CPM 10V, it's pretty killer steel. It's going to have insane amounts of edge performance when it comes to, you don't have to trade off wear resistance and high hardness, and it's got a good amount of edge toughness to it as well, but it's going to rust. It's more rusty. All right, so if you're focused on edge performance, but you're not as concerned about, the fact that your knife is going to rust, then yeah, the 10V is going to smoke these other steels. If the primary mechanism of your knife dulding is just it blunting over and not being as wear resistant, yeah, CPM 10V is going to be pretty kick-ass. So that just kind of gives you an idea of kind of how the structures in these steel contribute to certain synergies that will give some folks higher amounts of performance or other folks a real headache. And that's just kind of what it comes down to. I'd like to see people thinking deeper about this stuff and being able to apply this stuff more and connect more with the dots, because this is still a very surface level of explanation of this stuff. But I'm just trying to get the gears turning in people's heads. That's all I'm trying to do here. So we can all really enjoy things for when, they're really performing awesome, or, understand why something is mediocre. So that's all. All right, later.